This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your host, Brandon Cook, Nick Harrington, and Travis Foch.
Can Axel, Sandin, Pellikka, and Michael brandsegg-nygard play this weekend if they go to Detroit?
Oh my God. I'm so sick of answering that question online this week. I'm so sick of it. The answer is no.
Oh. Okay.
They cannot play in Grand Rapids if they play in Detroit this week. There's your answer, folks.
Why?
Rules. Rules are rules.
That's
good
stupid.
Lord.
They should.
I knew Nick would start this off like that.
Yeah.
I knew it. Of course he would start off the show with that.
All right.
Did Pellikka play today? I saw Friedman tweeting about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've had enough of you two already, and we're just getting started. Well, welcome back to the Hockeytown West podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis.
We are joined today by a special guest, Mr. Tyler Kuel. And Tyler, why would we have you on the show today?
I have no idea.
Why?
That's a great question.
I just clicked the link that you sent me and I said, sure, I got a Monday night to myself. The wife's working, the kid's asleep. So I don't know. Why not just talk to some guys about puck? Why not?
You know what? I like it, but we also brought you on because you have a lot of experience in the college hockey world with what you do. And, you know, there was some big college hockey things that happened in relation to Michigan this weekend. Plus, the Griffins and the organization added a couple of guys that are from local colleges here. So wanted to pick your brain on those. But before we dive into everything else on the show here, if you're tuning into this one, you're going to hear about the Grand Rapids Griffins' last 3 games, their game against Cleveland and their back-to-back at home against Texas to wrap up the regular season at home. We'll talk some playoffs. We'll talk the potential and landing spots of Michael brandsegg-nygard and Axel Sandin Pellikka, are basically confirmed coming to North America, but nobody knows when and where and what everything's going to look like. But it's pretty much a guarantee we all kind of know where they're going. Tons of stuff to talk about in this episode, but we got to start off with a congratulations to the Western Michigan Bronco hockey team. Bringing a natty back to Michigan here. You know, a recent national champion, another recent national champion in Michigan. You got Michigan football, Western Michigan hockey. It's good stuff right there.
It was, what's funny is that for those that don't know, this is Pat Ferschweiler's 4th season with the Broncos. And those that might remember the name, remember that Ferschweiler worked under Jeff Blashill when he was with the Red Wings. So a guy that has so much experience with the higher levels of hockey, and he even got to coach, be an assistant coach for the World Junior team a couple of years ago, the U.S. World Junior team in 2023. And I just, the way this team has been able to be good every single year with, especially in today's world of college athletics, where guys just go any which way they want. They don't like where they're at. All right, I'm going to transfer or whatnot. And first, I was able to put a good enough team together every year, to at least make the NCAA tournament. This year, they just got on this massive run after they lost to Michigan State at the GLI, and they had Alex Bump, who's a Flyers prospect, really tear things up. They had Tim Washy, their 5th-year captain, find his scoring touch that he hadn't really had in his first few years with the team. And guys like Grant Slakinski and Liam Valente, some unheralded guys, not NHL draft picks. And of course, their freshman goaltender, Hampton Slakinski, Grant's younger brother, comes in with him he had committed to Northern Michigan, but then that program was in disarray. So they both transferred down to Western, and Hampton all of a sudden looks like a really good goalie in that pipeline for the LA Kings, the way he played. And they beat the big dogs. They beat Denver to win the NCHC championship. They beat them again in the Frozen Four. They were able to get through UMass in the regional final, and then going up against the Blue Blood in Boston University with guys like Cole Yzerman and Cole Hudson and Quinn Hudson, made them look average. I mean, the way this team just continued to surprise me every step of the way, because you felt like, you know, eventually the bubble was going to pop. But man, it was a special team. And Owen Michaels, a sophomore, a guy that scored just only 2 or 3 goals last season, I think he scores 17, 18 during the season, scores 4 during the Frozen Four. I mean, one of the best rides I've ever been a part of, and getting to cover it a little bit for College Hockey News and for Daily Faceoff, to watch it and just to see that team and that program that for many years, really, I mean, they had hits and misses. They've had, you know, guys like Danny DeKaiser, and that was a good team back in 2012. under Andy Murray. And then there was Jeff Blashill's one year that they made it to the tournament. They were a really good team. And, you've had names like Glenn Healy and Keith Jones and Jamal Mayers. And we all remember the great ESPN broadcaster, John Saunders. He was on the original first ever NCAA team at Western Michigan. I have so many great names, but they've never been great on a national scale. And to see them do it and to have the city of Kalamazoo celebrate a champion like that, they're having their celebration rally tonight. Just so happy for the team. And I was pretty giddy. My brother and I were watching the game, and we were trying not to scream to wake up Felix, because that was a fun, unexpected finish for sure.
Yeah, it was something pretty special. I'm glad we got to catch bits and pieces of it while we were covering the Griffins on Saturday night to watch that game, and to do it in such dominant fashion was incredible. And like you said, the city of Kalamazoo gets to celebrate a champion. They have a new arena that they're getting built as well. This program's just getting better and better as things are going along here. They might just become a powerhouse in the NCAA at this point.
If they keep getting the players, because First does a great job of getting both incoming freshmen and developing them into star players, like I said, like the Washies, and then he gets like these transfer guys from, a guy like Brian Kramer. He was a fifth-year defenseman, and he might not have been the biggest point producer, but he was such a good two-way guy and he scores the first goal in the national championship game. Just a great player. He played 4 years at AIC, which is now no longer going to be a Division I program, but he finds a spot at Western as a fifth-year guy. This is the last of the fifth years, of course. Finds his role on the team, an efficient player, and that's what First does. First, if I can describe it properly, he uses his methods and today's college hockey landscape as a pro hockey team. He develops young talent. He gets players to come into the system, but he also is willing to go out and find players from elsewhere. You'll get the good freshmen that come in, and Alex Bump was a freshman last year, put up pretty good numbers, and this year really exploded. And people still, I don't know if he's going to sign now because we're so late in the year. Like, people thought he was going to sign with the Flyers after the season was over, but they went so far in the tournament. He might either wait until the offseason or maybe come back for a junior year. Who knows? And that's why First Weiler's name is all of a sudden being attached to all these potential openings in the National Hockey League, because how he's turned this program into a powerhouse and into such a dominant force. The way they played this year, they didn't lose at home for like 2 months. It was something ridiculous. Like, they were just a massive, and the NCHC, people thought it was a down year, but I think they say it was a down year because a team like Western Michigan isn't expected to be as good as they were historically, traditionally, right? So, and it all starts with First Weiler, Jason Herder, JJ Crew, that whole staff. They put together a really good team, and listen, they don't have the fancy facilities that like a Minnesota would have or North Dakota would have. They don't have the pedigree that a Michigan has or whatnot, and they do it their way, and it's worked, and it's only going to get better because, like you mentioned, the new arena. I have my reservations about the atmosphere, but they're going to get new facilities and updated amenities that they haven't had it playing at Lawson Arena. You'll lose the atmosphere at Lawson a little bit, but you're going to be able to attract better talent because, like, hey, look at this, $600 million arena they're building down here. These guys get to play in it. That sounds cool. It's going to be this snowballing effect to making Western consistently a great program, something that hasn't really ever happened in the 51 years it's been around.
It was kind of crazy to see that they beat like the top programs throughout this. Like, that to me was impressive, and they beat in the finals they went. It was a decisive game. It was 6-2. It's not like they got scored on or scored with the last like 3 seconds of the game or anything like that. Like, it was a decisive game, 6-2 score to be able to do it. And I saw this, and I've seen like controversial takes on this, and I'm not sure, and maybe you can speak on it, Tyler, but Western did this without using any of the NIL money.
I heard something about that too. I've not been able to get one confirm on that, but like I said, they do things differently, and I almost think they do it better, right? And I think the players that come in, they might not get the same as you would like a Michigan or a Michigan State or a Minnesota or even a BC and BU or whatnot. But there's a culture here at Western that players want to be a part of. They see the desire that the coaches have to build a good team, and players that are already here that want to be on a good team. There have been guys that have left the program, but these aren't guys that are top scorers that are looking for something better. You know, the big guns, they either graduate or sign pro contracts. Like not many of them are looking for different areas to go to get a better opportunity. Like there's some guys that don't play a whole lot that transfer, which I understand, but you're not going to see, I'm not going to name names because I'm going to jinx myself, but you're not going to see a top line guy, you know, just up and leave Western because they love it there. The guys love playing for that team. They love playing for First Wild. They love playing for each other, and seeing them, you know, when I've been able to travel with the team a few times over the last couple of years on road trips, and I broadcast for them, and like that's a team. That's not it's the club versus team kind of mentality. Like those guys all play for each other. They all love each other. They all work hard together. And it's infectious. These new guys that come in from other programs, they see that and like, oh, this is nice. This is a different change of pace from what I'm used to. So yeah, you don't need to spend money when you have that kind of character and culture in your room like that.
It also sounds like the pocketbooks are pretty wide open for this new arena too. Basically, if they want something, they are getting it, which is going to be interesting because they're also sharing it with the Kalamazoo Wings in the ECHL.
Yeah.
So nice to see them get an upgrade too. But it'll be very interesting to see how that all comes together because I've heard the reservations on the atmosphere as well because Western's barn is just different.
And it's really for both, right? I mean, Cookie and Nick, you guys know it too. Going down and see the Toledo down there at Wings Event Center. I almost said Wings Stadium, but it's Wings Event Center now. Sorry, but like they're going to lose that old time hockey vibe a little bit, right? So I'm bummed that the K Wings are losing that, and I'm bummed Western's losing the Lunatics a little bit. Like there's plans to kind of transport that. I mean, heck, they did it this weekend. They got people to go to St. Louis, right? So I guess why not get them to be able to go across town for the season, but. It'll be interesting how that plays out in a couple of years.
Yeah, it definitely will be. Moving on from Western, though, let's talk about some Grand Rapids Griffins action. There's 2 new acquisitions in the organization this week for next season. One of them is currently finishing up the season with Toledo, and the other one doesn't obviously join the team until next year as well. Let's talk about the first one. Defenseman Nicholas Andrews out of Michigan State, currently playing with the Walleye right now. Tyler, what can you tell us about the little bit you do know about Nicholas Andrews here? Because obviously we've seen him. We'll talk about him on the Toledo episode this week as well. You know, he's already got his first point with the Walleye. But what do you notice about him from college that should excite maybe some fans around here?
I mean, I was talking to you guys off the air before we started this. It's hard for a guy when you're playing on a team that just had Artem Leshinov at Michigan State and has Isaac Howard, who just won the Hobie Baker Award, which still stuns a lot of people. But Carson Dorart and Red Savage, all these other players, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, right? But Andrews, he's a good stay-at-home. I mean, he can play. He can give some offensive push if he needs to, but he's a good, solid, reliable guy. Adam Nightingale wasn't afraid to use him as a penalty killer, wasn't afraid to put him in certain situations where some guys might not be totally comfortable with. And he was on a team before he came to Michigan State for his 5th year here, and a team at Colorado College that when he started there was terrible. They were the bottom of the NCHC. They were hanging around there with Mike Miami and stuff. And they slowly got better. And right as they had probably last year was maybe their best year in a long time. Then he comes to Michigan State, an even better team, and experiences success there. So I think, just kind of a good progression for him to kind of build up to the pro game a little bit. And I think, that's a guy that could play at either level with the American League or the ECHL. I think you might see him be able to use a little bit more of his offensive talents that he had in spurts in his college game. I think that might be something he can use more with Toledo than he would Grand Rapids. But at the same time, I think, especially if he comes to a team with the Griffins, working with Watson, working with Lashoff, guys that know the pro game, guys that have been up and down through the ranks, they know what it takes to be a longtime pro. That'll definitely help his development well as being a professional defenseman too. So I like it. I like the pickup. It's an easy pick, and something just adds a little organizational depth for the Griffins, because as we've seen in the last couple of years, they always find a way to add a guy to the Griffins defense. They a cheap 2-way contract the Wings sign that doesn't work out. I'm not going to name names, but we all know who we're talking about when I say that. So just giving a young kid an opportunity might just be beneficial.
And I mean, I'm glad you said depth too, because that's something we've talked about a lot in recent episodes here, where we say that, this season, the organization really wasn't prepared with depth. And to see a move already for next season to get some depth in there is a positive sign. And hopefully that means next season it's moving in the right direction to where we're not using every ounce of call-ups for Grand Rapids that we have to sign a walleye player to a Griffins contract mid-season to be able to call them up. Like, hopefully we're just avoiding all of that next year. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like we had a lot of depth this year, especially on the D end. We had like 9 defensemen, I felt.
Well, no, okay, sorry. Nick's got a point there. Yes, in terms of bodies that can insert into the lineup and put on skates, sure, but talented depth, useful depth, that's what I think the Griffins and
Big
Red
difference
Wings,
there.
That's a big difference because they're, like I said, I'm not going to try to throw any players under the bus, but there's a couple guys that aren't with the team right now that were, filling shoes, but not with like lavender, with another kind of smell.
Well, they also added another defenseman when you talk about, guys for next season, and Jacob Truscott from the University of Michigan as well. And, looking just through the comments online as this was posted, fans seem pretty hype, and I think they have a good reason to be.
He is, because I've been fortunate enough to call a few games against Michigan and see Michigan firsthand myself. And, with Michigan, they always get the big name prospects. They always get these future NHLers, stuff like that. And Truscott, you have to remember, in his career, he's played on the defense with Luke Hughes. He's been with Owen Power. He's played with TJ Hughes. He's been with all these talented players at Michigan. And of course, that's with Ken Johnson and with Adam Fantilli. So he's not a guy that you're going to see in the spotlight. But what he brings to the table is just a simple defensive game. He doesn't need to, he also has a really deep pedigree of high-end hockey. He played for the National Development Program. He played at the World Juniors. He saw all these big spotlight moments. And for the most part, he was good. He was exceptional. And the best part about him is that we've been able to kind of see a guy that's developed into a talented young defenseman coming up through the junior ranks and national program too, being just a great leader. So much so that he was the captain for his last 2 years at the University of Michigan, which has not happened, having the same guy wear the C in the maize and blue in Ann Arbor since Luke Glendening did it well over a decade ago. So that just shows you how much Brandon Naurato trusted him when he was there as their Brandon Naurato head coach of the Wolverines, how much he trusted Truscott. And he really backed it up too. He's not a guy that you're going to see on the box score every single night, but he's going to make the smart plays. He's an excellent penalty killer. And he has the intangibles too, that I think in some guys that are going from either undrafted college free agents or guys just signing out of college, I think he has got more of the off-ice intangibles that coaches will love to see. Like, you have to know this. The guy's, let me make sure I got this right. He's 23 years old. So he's older than Cossa. He's already older than Danielson. He's older than a lot of these young Red Wing prospects. And while he's going to have to kind of find his footing a little bit in the pro game, he's going to be able to bring some experience and that leadership in right off the hop. He's not going to step in there and say, all right, guys, this is how it's going to be. But he's going to be able to kind of give a little bit of kind of like, if things start to go sideways, like, hey, guys, let's calm things down. Let's bring it together. And I think he's someone that the veterans are going to take a liking to. The coaching staff's going to take a liking to. And, his skill set might not translate to the National Hockey League ever, maybe, who knows, maybe things work out for him. He gets kind of the lucky shoe to fall on him, but he's just going to be a good guy the Griffins are going to love to have. And if it comes to be where he needs to go down to Toledo for a little bit for more playing time, I think it's going to work out there for him as well.
That's good insight, because I knew nothing about him going into this. Like, you said, he doesn't really get that spotlight being at the University of Michigan there. So that's all really positive things. And I think as a fan, we can feel pretty positive about that signing just based on those takes alone, because that's something that's needed on that back end.
What I've seen on him is he's like a phenomenal passer.
Yeah, he's a good like I said, he's not going to create the offensive opportunities, but if you need that one pass to get out of the zone, that, like everyone always says, like it's an annoying, typical, mundane, cliche, skill set to have as a defenseman, but good first pass for Jacob Truscott is kind of just an anomaly. It's just another thing for him. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And, you want your defenseman to be able to make plays like that and make smart plays out of his zone. But he just does it on a consistent basis. And that's why, I hate to ever look at plus minus, but that's the reason why, because he doesn't make too many mistakes in his own zone. And this year was a tough year for the Wolverines, sure, but that's because they had two, tier 2 quality goaltenders, but that's a different story for a different time. So, I mean, when he was playing in front of, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind right now. Not Noah West, because he went to Ferris. Oh my God, it's going to come to me later who their goalie was a couple years. Eric Portillo. There we go. Almost, I got it myself. When he's playing in front of Portillo, I think whenever he was on the ice, Portillo probably felt a little more comfortable than he would be when some of the other guys were on the ice. Because listen, I love Owen Power, but boy, defensively, that kid had problems, and he still does. But Truscott when the team was great, he looked phenomenal. And he was still pretty good even this past year when they weren't.
It's good stuff. It's exciting. It's exciting, like I said, to see additions for next year already kind of being in the works for this team. Usually you look for this stuff in the off season, but to get them now and to start getting some good quality players, especially on the back end, because there's a lot of question marks of what the Griffins defense will look like next season with so many contracts that'll expire, guys moving up, moving on, who knows? So to see a couple of guys already being added is a super positive sign. Outside of that, no other real news or anything crazy to talk about with the Griffins. Austin Watson's still currently called up with the Detroit Red Wings. That's about the only roster absence that we have. The only other big question mark right now is what Elmer Soderblom might be in the playoffs or not. We know Todd McClellan shut him down for the remainder of the season in Detroit. No one's been able to confirm anywhere if that means shut down for the full season, even coming back to Grand Rapids or not. He was one of the 2 waiver eligible players to be coming back down to Grand Rapids at any point in time once the playoffs started here. So losing him potentially for the Griffins does really suck, honestly. So we hope it's just shut down for the rest of the Red Wings season and then he can come back to Grand Rapids and be ready to go. But these end of season injuries continue to plague poor Elmer Soderblom, and that really sucks because we saw something very similar. Was it last year, or the year before that with the Griffins too? So hopefully he's good to go. Outside of that, no other roster announcements, right, for the Griffins? No. Oh, MBN and ASP confirming they're both coming to North America is probably something we should talk about, huh?
Probably next episode.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about it today.
So we can confirm it, right?
No,
it's all speculation right now.
It's definitely not speculation that they're coming to North America. I think their agent made that very clear after there was an interview that created a lot of confusion for about 5 minutes, and then his agent was like, no, they're coming. But at the same time, they're most likely, nothing is confirmed. Wouldn't trust us when I say we know nothing. We know nothing. We asked. We definitely asked as much as we possibly could to figure out when they could potentially arrive in Grand Rapids. Nobody knew the answer. But it is basically all but confirmed that they will arrive in Grand Rapids for the Griffins playoff season, which is a massive potential boost to this Griffins team. When you look at brandsegg-nygard, a guy that can shoot the puck and shoot it very well, something the Griffins definitely could use. I would love, and maybe you guys will agree with me here, to see a potential line of Austin Watson, Nate Danielson, and Michael brandsegg-nygard on the other side. I think that could be a lot of fun in the playoffs.
Yeah, that could help.
Good. Yeah.
After what we just saw this past weekend, 100%.
Travis, you got a lineup already?
No. I will say I do like the idea of that line because you kind of have Watson to free up space with Nate's playmaking and MBN shot. You kind of get a little bit of 3 different dimensional players kind of all on the same line, which can work at times. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. I don't know, Tyler, what you think of that?
Listen, I would love those guys to come here to Grand Rapids, but will the Wings allow that, right? Because
brandsegg-nygard is basically already confirmed he'll be in Grand. It's basically confirmed he's getting Grand Rapids. Yeah. He's not going to be in Detroit, probably even to start next season.
Right.
So he will most likely be a Griffin for the entire next season as well.
But you just wonder, would they just throw away and burn a year of their ELC with playing on Thursday against Toronto or something like that, right? What happened with Casper a couple years ago? I wonder if
different situation, I think, because the Griffins were not close to a playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think we're just waiting to see. And unfortunately, because it's the Red Wings, because Steve Yzerman, nothing from nobody. Even the high up people that I know struggle to get stuff out of Detroit. Right. And that's why, for example, typically we might have known in advance if Peter Mrazek might have gotten traded somewhere. We had no idea Peter Mrazek was coming to Detroit until it was announced. So it's one of those things where I would think, yes, the Griffins would get a huge boost. I just don't know what the plan is. I think that's what it comes down to. Because yes, does Yzerman want those guys? I would hope Yzerman would want those guys playing meaningful playoff style hockey games, right? Because I mean, it's not the NHL level, but going between Grand Rapids, because we know how the playoff atmosphere can be here in Grand Rapids, it can be great, and we saw that last year. Going up against a potential team probably going up against Texas right now. At least that's how it would be if it started today. That building can get pretty loud and raucous too. So they just kind of get that experience in playing North American playoff hockey. I would think that Yzerman would want that, but does he? Right? Like
if he doesn't, we're gonna have words.
I know. Yeah. Like, the next time I see Stevie walking around, like, hey, buddy, no, I would never. But it's like, it's hard because like we might not hear a thing until Thursday morning. All of a sudden, you see ASP on morning skate or on the morning skate. So if they even have a morning skate, of course, that's second half of back to back. But we'll just have to wait and see. I wouldn't mind it. Wouldn't mind seeing those guys join the Griffs for the playoffs. They definitely need that boost right now. So yeah, I mean, yeah, brandsegg-nygard. Yeah, I expect that to come to Grand Rapids, but will he come to Grand Rapids for the playoffs? That's I guess the big question.
It is the big question. And if he does, I would like to see that combination, because we were talking at the games over this weekend. You know, you look at what Nate Danielson can do when he's paired up with, let's say, you know, Snively and Watson on his side. And just last weekend, you know, a 6-point weekend.
Yep.
Watson disappears and you throw Tim Gettinger into that mix, and Danielson comes away with basically no points. So,
but that we saw that earlier with Danielson. We had kind of that. I mean, it's that, I don't want to say protection, but he just plays a little bit bigger. We saw that.
Yes.
That it wasn't just this, a couple weeks ago. This was every time Watson put Austin and Nate together. Like Nate just had this little bit of confidence. And I think playing with a guy like Austin Watson, we've been able to see him firsthand. He's a very genuine person. He's a guy that he won't knock you down for no reason. Like he's picking up the rookies. He's giving them a lot of guidance and stuff. And I think Nate thrives off that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. So obviously pay attention to the social pages. We'll update once anything is announced, or if we do hear anything that we can share, of course we'll share it. But until then, it's a mystery. Moving on to this past 3 Griffins games that we get to talk about today. We're not going to go super in depth with every game. We'll start with the Cleveland game this past Wednesday. A frustrating one. The Griffins dropped this one 4-3 in Cleveland after starting off with a 2-0 lead in the first period, and then it kind of goes south really fast there. 2 goals from Cleveland in the second, 2 goals in the third. They were able to get back within 1 late in the game, but at the same time, not able to close the deal. And it's just another one of those games where the Griffins, I feel like they outplayed Cleveland for most of this game. Just a rough second period kind of set the tone for the rest of the game, and the result just speaks for itself. Another blown 2-0 lead. We're getting really familiar with these blown leads, unfortunately, with this Griffins team. So for this one, we'll go to Tyler first. Just Tyler, what did you see from the Griffins in this one, from what you were able to catch? I know you don't cover this team routinely anymore, unfortunately. We hate that you don't. But at the same time, we know you still keep up with it being your hometown team. We know you keep up with it enough to be able to speak on it. What did you see from the Griffins in this one?
I'll tell you what, it was for having it be an NHL Network showcase game, it was a pretty boring game. I mean, in terms of it was funny. I had it on and I was like, because I'm like, oh, come on TV tonight. Nice. And I was just watching. I'm just like, all right. And they just had that's such a good start. I'm like, all right, they can coast the rest of the way. And unfortunately, they coasted, but the Monsters didn't. And I think because they were able to kind of take the crowd out of the game early on. They were able to get the pressure on them, and Cleveland just kind of looked out of sorts because it's that weird midweek game vibe where no one's really up for it. Because I mean, it looked like a good crowd there at Rocket Fieldhouse, not Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Yeah, now it's just Rocket,
Man. But like it just seemed like kind of like a mad game you're going to see, and then Cleveland just gets that goal by Grimaldi, and it's like, all right, then there's life. And unfortunately for the Griffins, they just weren't able to recover once the Monsters got going. And it's something that you've seen maybe one too many times as of late. They've not been able to recover from adversity that they were able to in the first half of the year when they were one of the best teams in hockey. You have to remember the Griffins were the second team in the AHL to get 20 wins this year. And since then, it has not been that glorious, really. Like it's been because of just, it's almost like for lack of a better term, a here we go again scenario. Once things start snowballing, going away from them, getting out of their hands, they're just not able to bunker down and say, all right, let's figure this out. So that just that's what it felt like. And like I said, those weird midweek games it's hard. It can be hard especially at this time of year too, when you've already clinched a playoff spot and you're going up against a team you played 100 times before. It's like, all right, whatever, let's just get through this and move on to the next game. Cause that's kind of what it felt like in the second half of that game from my eyes.
Really reminiscent to the Chicago game the Wednesday the week before, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of the same result too, which is the unfortunate part. Some positives in it, at least. The Lombardi assist to Sheldon Dries to start it off was beautiful, as we would expect. And if you could bet on, a player to score in a game on a betting app like DraftKings with the AHL, which you can't, unfortunately, but if you put money on Tim Gettinger scoring in Cleveland, you would pretty much hit every single time. And again, Timmy G suddenly after, last week, he was point every game last week, 3-game point streak, and then goes into Cleveland and gets another. And again, it was expected, but at the same time, it's good to see him kind of get things going again, especially after we talked about last week, the team having that team meeting on Thursday last week after the Chicago game that, in Bob's words, said that team meeting got heated. And to see, some of the veteran players continuing to produce consistently again is a positive sign, even though the end result was not positive. But, Nick, another thing I'll throw to you here, that last Griffins goal to at least get back within one there by Andre Becker. Emmett Finney and Doucette coming together for the assist there. Finney continuing to start being more consistent. Just like, what are you seeing from him so far that you're liking?
Just he keeps his feet moving. I mean, Finney he's getting comfortable. He's getting adjusted to the speed. He looks like the player that we've been waiting for. He's been playing that physical game, and now you see Becker starting to light it up a little bit as well. He's getting comfortable. I don't know if he was like battling some injuries before or not, coming back. So it's good to see him coming back and producing. I mean, you need the young kids to produce. You need Gettinger to be producing like he has been these next few games that we'll talk about. And the other bet that you could always make is Rocco Grimaldi scoring on the Griffins.
That is so true. There's just so many names in the AHL when you see them on a roster before a game, you're like, he's going to put up a point against us somehow, some way. Texas has got like 3 of those guys. When Podorowski played with the Wolves, it was a nightmare for Grand Rapids. And then you got Rocco Grimaldi. When he played with the Wolves, he was a nightmare. He's playing with Cleveland. He's still a nightmare. I will say, just for my sanity, that Trey Fix-Wolanski was kept off the score sheet in this game, and that's always a positive for me. It really is a miracle. But when I don't have to say his name frequently on the show, I'm a much happier person mentally. So,
Who's?
Well, no, I'm not saying it again.
Fixie boy, Fix-Wolanski.
The most frustrating thing for me in this game, though, even though the Griffins only had 2 opportunities on it, it was the power play. It was awful in this game. It was everything back to where we saw them go, 40 power play attempts without a goal. It looked just like it again, and that was beyond frustrating to see kind of rear its head this late in the season again.
It's the full offense. I mean, even in this game, you see GR they never hit over 10 shots in any of the periods. And we go 0 for 2 on the power play here. It's just like our offense does not have any rhythm. It doesn't have any structure. It doesn't have no connection. It just looks very broken. And it's something that, I pointed out to you on Saturday as well. We'll talk more on. But I mean, I'm looking at this 9 shots in the first. You got 6 in the second. And then in the third, you have 7. You're just not creating the chances. I mean, on the other end, Cleveland didn't have that many chances either. They only had 3 in the first in their home building. So you expect them to be putting up a little bit more of a fight. But this power play is going to be the death of us the rest of the season, I feel.
But yeah, I agree. The power play, it scares me going into the playoffs here. It definitely scares me. But this game also, when you kind of look at it, when you say, Cleveland didn't have, a lot of high danger opportunities, was not a great night for Sebastian Cossa, honestly, in the Griffins net. Stopping 13 of 17 faced, and a few of those goals were ones that he would definitely like to have back. Travis, I'm going to pivot this to you because we haven't heard from you much in this episode because you just came back from vacation. You didn't get to watch any of these games or anything like this, but this question is relevant to you. Is this stretch that you're kind of witnessing Sebastian Cossa going through surprising to you after, what you saw in Toledo and his development track so far?
I feel like Tyler's more the guy to ask on this, but I feel like when the team in front of you is not playing well, that doesn't help the situation. And, I mean, Tyler, you played goalie, so, I mean, you can probably speak on that. He probably wants
just
to
bad
be
luck,
better.
Tyler. That's my problem. I interviewed him one-on-one. That was my fault. So
Yeah, Tyler's cursed with one-on-one interviews, by the way, folks. So anything that
I've
falls
learned
off, it's his fault.
With just the Griffins. Any
Yes.
other, I've interviewed people at Michigan State, lit it up, guys up over in Hockey East, they've done fine. The Griffins, if you need a guy to hit on a low spell or go somewhere else, I'm your guy.
It's a cause for concern, though. Like,
Right. Why do we have Tyler on right before the playoffs?
Yeah.
He's a young player, though. Like, I get that he was drafted a few years ago, but it just takes time, and goalies take longer and take different paths. And look at how well he was at the start of the year. And it's no coincidence that, his numbers have declined and the Griffins' numbers have declined. So they kind of go hand in hand. And when it's not going great, it's tougher to play in, I'm sure. Tyler, you would know, you played goaltender.
And here's the thing about this as well. It's a lot of a mental thing. And he mentioned himself, when he came back from Detroit, he knew he was going to have to battle complacency. That's a thing. But people have to remember this. I think there's multiple factors where people are concerned, maybe nervous about how things are going for Sebastian Cossa. There were times that, and I know this guy never won a cup with Detroit, but there were times when Jimmy Howard was just downright awful with the Griffins. And I mean,
it's true.
And yes, and you have to remember too, after, was it 07 they made the playoffs, they got knocked out by Chicago, 08 and 09, the team was bad in front of them. But he kept getting opportunities because there was Osgood and then there was Conklin. So there's old guys up in Detroit. So he kept, and Hasek too. So he kept getting chances here and there to play. And he kind of just won the team over by his work ethic, right? And I'll have to remember too, he didn't become a full-time NHLer until 09-10. He came to Grand Rapids right after the lockout. So yeah, that was 4 years. 4 full years with the Griffins. I'm not including 22-23. So this is technically year 2 of having Cossa as a Griffin. Yes, 3rd year as a pro, if you want to go that far. It takes time. And yes, it sucks because people are seeing what's going on in Detroit and how the goaltending has failed the Red Wings, and they think we need him to get up there. Well, unfortunately, you either try that and wreck him, Devin Levi, Rochester and Buffalo, how that's gone well for them, or you let him kind of ripen to the point where he's totally ready to go. And like Jimmy Howard, took the net away from Chris Osgood in his first year and had a long, sustainable career at the Red Wings and gave them some good years. I know they weren't playoff successful, but still was a verified number 1 goaltender for the Red Wings for all those years. So if you want that for Sebastian Cossa, if you want him to be the number 1 guy, you do need to give him time. I would like to see him play in Detroit a little bit more. If someone does, I don't want to have the Red Wings hold 3 goaltenders next year so that if one gets hurt, then Cossa's still stuck down here, or then one guy gets sent down to Grand Rapids after they have a terrible game against the Pittsburgh Penguins and wrecks the entire plan for Sebastian Cossa again. But there is a good plan here. And just to Travis's point, the team in front of them isn't playing well. They're getting heavily outshot on, I don't want to say on most nights, but it's not as when they were getting outshot early in the year. They're giving up way too many grade A scoring chances. They're leaving Cossa. They're leaving Campbell out to dry. As a goaltender, you can only do so much by yourself, right? Whenever you ask for a goalie to steal a game, you can't steal every game. We're going to talk about what Campbell did this weekend here in just a minute, but that happens once in a while. But you shouldn't have to have that happen on a consistent basis, because that seems like what the Griffins are putting Cossa in the position of having to do if they want to win games right now.
Can I ask you a question, Tyler?
No.
It's in relation to this. So when Cossa got drafted, his big thing was super athletic, super just he's got all these raw tools, right? Yep. And it was refinement. Do you think he's got enough refinement now to where he maybe could rely on those physical tools a little bit more?
for him, and having talked to himself, like he really wants to work on just staying more disciplined. Like I go back to Eric Portillo because he was very like seeing him at Michigan. That guy was athletic as athletic can get. But my flaw with him, and it still kind of is to this day with how he is with the Ontario Reign over there, he's just so athletic that he thinks he can rely on that. And while that works in the college game, maybe the minor leagues, it will never work in the NHL. Jonathan Quick is the one anomaly in that story, in that narrative. But with Cossa, he wants to be, maybe not wants to be a Carey Price, but like a Carey Price, where you don't want to have to, rely on being an athletic, a flexible, a quick goaltender. You want to just be simple positioning in the right spot. And then when you have to make that desperation save, then you show off the flamboyance, the excellent, the highlight reel goaltending that we love, because that's what made Carey Price an all-world goaltender. He was good at staying what we say is a goaltender in the box. You make simple, short movements, staying in position, making yourself as big as possible. And with Sebastian Cossa, who determines before the season if he wants to be 6'6" or 6'7" going into the year, like he has the size to just be a simple goaltender, but he has the athleticism to back it up too. I think maybe something we've seen with him is that he's got to maybe be more picky and choosy and maybe recognize the situation a little quicker on when he has to make that desperation save or when not to. That's that little bit of that refinement I think he's been working on in the pro game here. So I think there's just a lot that he's really good at. And I think next year, if they can find a way, if yzerman just doesn't sign and have 3 goaltenders in Detroit, if you can give him a 50-50 split of kind of maybe a couple games here and there because a goaltender is going to get hurt. It's the National Hockey League these days. If you can have him as a definitive number 3 next year, starts in Grand Rapids, but is the first guy to get called up to Detroit, I think that'll be the best way to get him more refinement because he'll be facing more NHL shooters in practice, in warmups, and then in a few games. That's what's going to give him a little more refinement because when you're in the American League so long, it kind of hurts you. Because I go back to Jimmy Howard. He made his debut in, I think, 07-08, right, during that Cup season. He didn't get his name on the Cup because he didn't play enough, but he was seeing games during that year, which would have been his 3rd year in pro. So I think getting some more NHL games will be good for Cossa, but not throwing him in saying, all right, because it's what happened with Garrett Sparks with the Leafs. They said, all right, this is your time. You're the starting guy or the number 2. And he crumbled, and I haven't heard from him since. So
strategic starts, basically.
Yes. That's a perfect phrase, Travis.
And you hit on something there.
If you don't know where Garrett Sparks is, you can ask Brandon.
Oh, we know where Garrett Sparks is. Oh, that's a fun story from the Toledo playoffs last year. Gosh. But it's funny how you hit on like the, getting shots from NHL shooters, because you look at Sebastian Cossa at the beginning of the season, right after, training camp and going through all that in the preseason. And he was much more comfortable. Like I always call it with him, like there's times where he's swimming around in the net, and you start to see that kind of more and more in this stretch that, the team and himself has been on. And I think you're spot on, just trying to identify the times to use the athleticism or not. And that's something he'll learn. So I'm going to clip that whole segment there and post it on Twitter for everyone who's just freaking out thinking he's not going to make it already, and we'll be good to go. And I'm sure that'll get great reactions in the comments. Can't wait for it.
And I think too, like you're at this point of the year too, you're in silly season mode, right? Even though they're getting ready for the playoffs, like the guys they're playing 70 games a year. And I know Cossa doesn't play every game, and obviously they're, especially with having 3 guys in Grand Rapids too, he hasn't played every night, but you get mental fatigue. The grind sucks. I know that's the word that everyone loves to use. It's an easy one, but it can be hard and that's another refinement, a mental refinement that Cossa's tried to work on. Because you have to remember, his best season in the WHL was a COVID shortened season, 2021, went 17-1-1 that ridiculous year. And then he had a good year after that, but he hasn't had this kind of a season all that often that people have really seen him like flourish the entire year, because Cossa struggled at the beginning of last season, but then had a great second half. And he had a great start to the season, and now he's had a tough second half. Like for that, I think that's another thing he's going to really want to focus on for the end of this year, into the playoffs, and then going into next year as well, is strengthening that mental ability. Is like, all right, we're at game 55. You know what? It's going to be a tough night to get through it, but I have to grind through this, and I have to be strong. Because when you lose that mental focus, you kind of get yourself, maybe not up for the game. You kind of move a little more lackadaisical. You go through a little more through the motions. And that's when you get caught out of position. You kind of, Cookie, like you just said, they're swimming around. You kind of think you can rely on your natural instincts, where you have to almost be stronger mentally than physically.
Yeah, 100%. It's good insight. Appreciate that. All right, before we talk about the Friday and Saturday game, we got to hit an ad break. When we come back, we'll dive into both of those games here and then talk about what the playoff picture currently looks like for the Griffins.
This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out. A game's left for you to get in the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
And welcome back to just Tyler, Travis, and myself. We seemingly lost Nick in the transition here. Technical difficulties. What more could you expect from a minor league hockey podcast, right? It happens. But anyways, we'll dive into these next games and get through the show with just three of us, unfortunately. Sorry for Nick there.
I was about to say, what kind of Coast League nonsense is this? I'm kidding. No. I'm kidding, Travis. I'm kidding.
The Coast has it more together than the AHL at this point, honestly. At least their playoff format makes sense.
Yeah, that actually is 100% true. Fine. What level of Fed League SPHL nonsense is this? We'll just keep going further down. We'll just go
welcome to the Hockeytown West podcast. We're the Fed of podcasts. It's all right.
We don't get paid a lot, but we have some fun while we're doing it.
That's the next t-shirt we ever release right there. We're the Fed of podcasts. Anyways, back to the Griffins here. Let's talk about Friday's game where the Griffins come away with a 5-2 win over the Texas Stars at home for their second to last home regular season game. Jesus. And a game they definitely shouldn't have won. Let's just be real here. I mean, yes, only one of those 5 goals was an empty net goal, but the Griffins were outshot by Texas 37-23 in this game. Texas controlled momentum for 90% of this game. The Griffins were just able to capitalize on the opportunities that they did have, even though there was not a ton of them, including a power play goal, which was nice to see after we just talked about how bad the power play was Wednesday. But at the same time, it really was just the story of capitalizing on the shots that they could take in beating Magnus Hellberg in shots that he probably normally would stop, but the Griffins found a way. And man, this was, again, a game where we watched in person just frustrated, but at the same time, happy with the end result. Most of the scoring for the Griffins happened in the last 6 minutes of the game, to be honest with you. But at the same time, we'll take wins when they're wins, right?
I mean, this was 2010 Jack Campbell, right? I mean, that was the funny thing of watching like that, was just seeing how he has that weird ability to still steal a game, right? I know he talked about earlier, like having to steal a game, and yeah, Campbell can't steal every game for you, but you know what? Every so often he will. And I think a game like that, and just the way Cossa has played, that's why I'm going into these playoffs. I don't know. I'm sure Cossa is going to get the first dibs because they want him to be the prospect. But then again, I looked at what happened with Milwaukee last year, remember, in the playoffs. Yaroslav Askarov started. It didn't play well, and Milwaukee had to make a change, and it almost cost them in the playoffs, but it ended up working. And so that's why I'm going to these playoffs. Man, if Campbell can show that he can play well, and if Cossa doesn't, if he slips up, what's going to happen, right? So just a great game for Campbell. I'm happy for him, but it begs the question of all right, who's that's why I would like to know. I'd love to pick Dan Watson's brain of how much say do you have on who plays on certain nights? Because in the playoffs, it can be a whole different story, right? Who do you want to have, get that playoff experience? Because obviously you think Cossa because he's the prospect, but hey, it's game 5. We need to win here. Campbell can steal us a game. Would that be a decision that be made? So I'm happy that Campbell got this win here, but it just shows me the concern of all right, because then you're going to see people saying, why don't we play Campbell instead of Cossa in the playoffs? And then that whole thing happens. But yeah, great. I mean, not a great win, but a win for the Griffins in a time that they just need to pick up wins to get momentum if they even want to feel that level of confidence going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I said to coach after the game was like, you needed your goalie to be fantastic to win this game, and boy, was he. Jack, especially for not playing much as of late, came in and stole a game, and we will take that any day of the week. And not saying that if Cossa was in net, it would be a different result. You can't say that, but at the same time, Jack to kind of come in without tons of playing time recently, and coaches keep saying he's had great weeks of practice, and he's showing what we would kind of expect from him to come in and play like that. Absolutely huge. Some goal scorers in this one too that you wouldn't really expect. Gabriel Seeger comes into this game, gets his 9th of the season. Anton Johansson collects his first of 2 assists of the night. William Vollinder also assisted on that goal, and you saw the pairing of those two debut for the first time together as a Griffins pairing. And I think instantly became one of the best pairings we've seen this season with the Grand Rapids Griffins, putting those two together. Easily one of the best skating pairings by far with the way that those two can skate on the ice. But you put 2 Swedes together and magic kind of happens.
Yeah, I wonder if Travis, if you have any thoughts on it, but more or less like it just, because for Vollinder, I know people are wondering where is his level at and where is he on the timeline for development and whatnot. And maybe just playing with a fellow countryman might help out a little bit, because I think we can agree that when he was playing with Simon last year, I think he was playing with a little more confidence and whatever. So that might help a little bit.
Yeah, you get familiarity, right? Like you've at some point probably played in a similar system with a guy. It's probably not the same system you're playing now, but again, you just kind of can know the ins and outs of how guys play, and you get that familiarity of just, okay, he kind of knows the style of play that I'm used to playing potentially with coming in from Sweden, so it just helps, I think.
Yeah, it's huge for him, especially when you're coming into this unfamiliar environment like that, and to be able to pair up with him and produce results like that. Coach Watson said after the game, that was the best pairing on the ice by far. And it was clear from observation as well that they were. And, it's good for Anton too. He's starting to get really comfortable. He had his first few games when he went 5 games, issue with no points, a 3-point game, no points the next night, 2-point game. Like, you're starting to see some offensive production, which he wasn't signed to be that offensive producing defenseman, but he's finding a way to do it. We've kind of seen almost all facets of his game at this point. You've seen some offensive production. You can see the defensive play clearly. You're just kind of waiting for that physical side to come in, which in this game, you started to see it come through a little bit. He was trying to get under the Texas Stars skin, and it was working. And just kind of being that rat out there that can cause a little bit of chaos, then skate away laughing about it, which is something these Swedish defensemen are really good at for some reason. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun for Griffins fans. And, his destination next year is not settled as far as we've heard. We don't know if he's going to stay here. He does have a signed contract back overseas. So he could go back, he could stay here, and I think just speaking for Griffins fans, we'd like to see him stay here, and I think he'll quickly become a fan favorite. But moving on from him there, everyone else to talk about in this game outside of Jack Campbell and Anton there, Amadeus Lombardi, again, having another great showing. He gets an assist in this game, a very nice assist on a Sheldon Dries goal there. But again, just continues to produce and be that player that we all know he can be. And the pace that he's on this year with point production is absolutely ridiculous. And I should correct myself too. He also had the secondary assist on Dominic Shine's goal of the game, which was the second goal of the game for the Griffins there on that power play as well. So another 2-point night for Ammo, and just continues to start raising the question around him. Like, can he force a conversation in Detroit next year? Seems to be the biggest question we see online through fans at this point.
I don't know. Travis, you want to take this one first, or?
I was going to ask you, where do you think he would go in a redraft? Like, how many rounds higher?
So I'm going to say this, and this is going to, because especially since I'm part of hockey media where everyone loves doing these sort of things, I hate that idea in a redraft, because it's like, yeah, he might go higher, but like first of all, for Lombo too, like he's so early right now. I think like I would need him to get some NHL time first. Right. Like, I think that's like, if he can turn it to the next level, then I think you bump him up, because we've seen so many guys that have been, good players in junior, good players in college, and, guys that think, hey, you know what, if he keeps going the right path, he might make it to the NHL, but then they get stuck in the minors. And I've mentioned this about Cookie to this to you as well, Cookie, like Lombardi, if things don't play out right for his development, for a spot to open up on him. He could just end up, unfortunately, being a minor leaguer for a long period of time just because if things don't work out. I think he does have the skill set to make the next level. But to Travis' point about a redraft, I would need to see if he can take what he's doing now here in Grand Rapids in the AHL and do that, and maybe in a different capacity, because obviously he's not going to get thrown up into the top 6 right away if he gets called up to Detroit next year, in theory. But if he can bring that skill set, bring that speed, bring that energy that he has here into Detroit, then I think I can consider him maybe better than some of the guys that were picked before him. I think he's on the right path, but I need to see him in a red and white sweater to say that, yeah, he should have been drafted a little bit higher.
So well, I mean, he's worn the Shield jersey a couple times. Come on.
Well, the one with the wheel and the wing, and then they play the goal horn, and they have someone go, hey, that one. Yeah, that plays.
I think he's super talented offensively, and he can skate really well. I think the biggest thing is, like, I think his path is on the wing, though. I've said that for a while now. I just think that's where, at the next level, he could really showcase the skill and speed more. It's just my opinion. With the center depth that's in front of him, I think it's going to be incredibly tough.
And I think I mentioned this to you as well, Cookie. Like, I think this could be a William Nylander situation. Nylander came up center. He was a center. He was a center with the Marlies. Came to the NHL. Too many centers. Even his pseudo rookie year in 15-16, the Leafs had a lot of veterans down the middle. They had Kadri and all those guys. I think even Brad Boyes was there too. Boyes may have been a winger though, but they put him on the wing, and unfortunately they've tried to push him back to center, but he's just kind of stayed on the wing, but he's found a good fit there. And now he's making $10+ million. I'm not saying that's going to work out identically for Lombardi here, but if you're a good center and you can just kind of learn to play in your own zone on the wing a little bit, you can find a spot then. Because this is what Hockey Canada did for years with their senior men's teams in 2014, the Olympics, 2016 World Cup. They just grabbed a bunch of centers and said, all right, guys, you, and you, Crosby, a little bit, you, Marchand, a little bit, you're going to play on the wings. Okay. Just figure it out. And it worked. They only, won a gold medal, won a World Cup of hockey. They've obviously changed their mentality and all sorts of things, but like the good and the great players, I think going from center to wing is easier than going from wing to center. Absolutely. So I think, if Lombardi gets an opportunity to play on the left wing somewhere for Detroit, take advantage of it. Because I'm not saying, I can't speak from experience on that's an easy change, but just from seeing it from my eyes, you have to play higher up in the zone. You don't have as much really defensive responsibility as a winger as you do a center too. So that'll be a lot easier for him to get up to the NHL, not having to try to be a full 200-foot player as a rookie. It's a very tough thing to do. Few can do it great. Connor McDavid's an exception, right? Connor Bedard's a little bit of an exception too, like how he played last year with Chicago. Some can do it, some can't. And I think if Lombardi gets called up and said, all right, we're going to put you on the fourth line wing tonight just to kind of get a feel for the game, great. Take advantage of that opportunity. And I think he could do it well too with his speed and everything. He doesn't need to be, and I think with his skill set, he doesn't need to be a defensive type of player. He can just bring the energy as a winger, as a bottom six guy, and then work his way up the lineup. If things keep going the direction that they are, because I think he's got that skill set. And because when you're a winger, the only time you're a winger on the offensive zone is when you take a faceoff. Like that's literally it. After that, it's free flowing hockey. The only thing is defensively. And I think it's easier to be a defensive winger than it is to be a center.
Well, and if you look too, like if you look at some of the centers that they've drafted, like Larkin started on the wing, Rasmussen's found a home on the wing. Like Casper, when he went up, he was basically starting on the wing. He found a home there. Now they moved him back to the middle. Like, it's an easier transition when you bring a guy up to not have to have him maybe struggle in the face-off dot. Let's be real. Like,
well, yeah, look at Connor Bedard's first ever hockey game in the NHL. What does he do? Put him up against Sidney Crosby. I'm sorry. Hey, Amadeus Lombardi, you're up against Connor McDavid. Go kick rocks. Like, I'd rather be put on the wing and have to cover yeah, sure, Evan Bouchard takes a hard right-handed shot, but it's easier to cover him because he'll be at the blue line instead of trying to track Connor McDavid circling around the zone like a freaking tornado.
Well, and I look at faceoffs, it's like a strength and leverage thing.
Yeah.
Like, and as a rookie, that's tough. Like, I
Yeah,
just think the pathway is there for him more on the wing than center. And if he turns out to be a center, awesome.
Great,
You can never have too many centers.
Yeah, or a guy that can play center. Like if he gets caught out there in the penalty kill or something like that, all right, Lombo, you're out there, take a face-off. You know, okay, I know how to take face-offs. I can do it here. Like, okay. Yeah, he might not be a face-off specialist, but I don't think he really is that now. Let's be honest. Like he's a good, solid player here, but like if it turns out to be a winger, great. That means you still got a forward that exceeded many expectations and still made the National Hockey League. And
it's funny too because I looked at Sean Shapiro's latest article because he was in Grand Rapids this weekend, and he mentioned Amadeus Lombardi in there. And, he mentioned in that article, he'd spoken with someone with the Red Wings recently, and they noted that Lombardi would have played NHL games this season probably if he had been more dialed in defensively. So that defensive piece is going to be the thing that could make or break for him, and he'll have to figure it out. And we know, like, just from observation, he has the ability to take pucks away. Like he has the ability to be a difficult player to play against, but just being that sound defensive player and be able to produce at the level he's produced this season. Because yes, last season, limited role and, being buried on the third and fourth line, playing center pretty much all season. Not ideal for him putting up points, but where he's been able to put up points this season, that's kind of what you would hope to expect to see him grow from and hopefully be able to develop that defensive game too. So it'll be a fun watch. He's one of my favorite prospects to follow right now, honestly, just because he was that 4th round pick during the COVID year. So you kind of didn't know what you were getting. And whether he's in Grand Rapids or Detroit eventually, he's just a fun player to watch because his feet match his mitts, right? His hands can move with his feet. And that right there is worth its weight in gold, especially with some of the moves we've seen him pull off. Or like we posted one from Saturday's game on Twitter and said it was Danielson, but it was actually Lombardi because we can't read the back of the black jerseys from the press box. Whoops, our bad.
Oh, you're bad. Okay, that one's on you because Amadeus Lombardi, Cookie. What hand does he shoot?
Listen, I don't need...
What hand does Danielson shoot?
Listen, Dog gave us enough crap after the game for it because he saw it in intermission on his phone and gave us crap on Twitter and then in person as well. He asked if we were getting drunk at Hopcat before the game, honestly, at that point to see if we could read. So, yep, we'll take an L on that one. We don't make many mistakes, but when we do, they're usually comical and it ends up being the biggest post of the weekend. Whoops. Of course and the caption was great if it was Danielson. Come on. Our caption on that was perfect. But, oh well. Moving on. Outside of that, no other crazy stories from this game besides, like we said, the Griffins won a game against an opponent that they needed to win a game against, and this game they shouldn't have won. So you go into Saturday against that same team to close out the regular season at home. The fans showed up. The team didn't. Well, we'll just say it bluntly here. The Griffins did not show up in this game. Total of 18 shots in the game, 4 in the third period alone. It was 2 until about 9 or 8 minutes left in the period as well. And they got 2 more near the end there. Texas wins this one 4-1. 2 empty net goals. The only goal scorer for the Grand Rapids Griffins, Gabriel Seeger. Goals in back-to-back games for Seeger on that 4th line there. And I do want to start off with a positive from both of these games in general when you tie them together. That Griffins 4th line is becoming tougher and tougher and tougher to play against, especially when you look at the guys on that line. Carson Bantle, ECHL player for a good chunk of the season. He's that first call up. Gabriel Seeger, a guy that probably should have been in this ECHL this season, but we don't have enough depth for that to be a reality. And Hunter Johannes, who could also be playing in the ECHL or AHL. It really doesn't matter. He could be in both. Those 3 guys together have become a wrecking crew for this Grand Rapids Griffins team. And in this game, Carson Bantle laid 3 checks in sequential order, 2 of them on the same player for Texas. Like that line was the energy line. They were the spark. They were trying to get things going. They're producing some points, but the Griffins can't only have the 4th line show up game after game after game. Because let's be real, for the past 3-4 weeks now, we've been talking about those guys on the show. That 4th line has been fantastic for the Griffins. It's exactly what you would expect from a 4th line at this level. The rest of the team's got to show up too, and they did not in this game whatsoever.
Yeah, this was not. I mean, after it's talking about Friday's game, a game they should not have won. This was the hockey god saying, okay, bet, I'll take care of that. And just exactly what happened on Saturday that should have happened on Friday. The difference was the Griffins didn't get the stellar goaltending. And like I said, you can't expect that to happen 2 nights in a row against the same team. So with the fact that there could be a matchup again, I know things still got to be worked out, right? But like going up against Texas and seeing how they bullied Grand Rapids this weekend in their own barn. I know we talked about how Texas ain't that great at home this year, but like in the playoffs, and Watson mentions it all the time. And he says it all the time about regular season games too. Like, oh, you gotta be able to protect your own barn. You gotta play well in your own house and stuff like that. But the way that Grand Rapids kind of just gave up, like it just felt like they didn't have, outside of that checking line, a checking line that was producing more than anybody. They just didn't seem like it's the Shoresy line. The boys just, it seemed like the boys don't want it. That's what it felt like. And you can't have that kind of game, that kind of mentality at this time of the year, that type of performance at this time of the year, because it's just going to insert the seed of doubt. And, right now, it just seems like the Griffins will get a spot in the first, or whatever, the division semifinals, whatever they call it now. The second round, the first round, whatever you want to portray it as. But if it's against Texas, Milwaukee's going to be certainly tough, by all accounts. But I wouldn't want to play Texas either, the way things went this weekend.
I don't want to play either of them, to be honest with you. I don't want to play in the play-in round either, though. So I got to pick my poison there.
Right.
Texas scares me, but at the same time, we've seen the Griffins play extremely well against them, so it all depends. And both teams, like we said, they don't play well at home. This, compared to last year, this Griffins team at home to this year, it's night and day difference. The Griffins, I think, only had a total of 9 losses at home last year, and they're 17, 15, 2-2 at home this season. Like, they have not been able to protect home ice, which is, like you said, Tyler, one of Coach Watson's biggest things is protecting home ice. Give these fans a show. They pay their hard-earned money to come here. He always wants to put on that show, and they just did not do it this year. And that's kind of scary going into the playoffs, but at least in that scenario, if it stays the way it is right now, we would start on the road, I would assume. But at the same time, with the AHL, you never know. It all depends on arena availability, and we might play the first 2 games here and then 4 in Texas. Like, we've seen that stuff happen before. It was just frustrating to see them not show up. Like, at least with the game before where they shouldn't have win, there was some compete, as a lot of the coaches in this organization have said over the years. There was a lot of compete from the team, and
gotta have that give a what.
Yeah, thanks, Ben Simon. But, I asked Watson after this one, what would you rate the compete level? And he's non-existent. So it kind of, he saw it, we all saw it, and it was just a kind of a frustrating way to cap off what's been just an up and down season at home for this team. And I don't know, I guess they're in the dance and that's all that matters, and they got to finish on the road here. There's really no other final thoughts to add to that game, and we can talk about what is yet to come still. The Griffins have 3 games left on the season. 2 in Rockford, 1 Wednesday, 1 Friday, and then the season finale in Iowa, which will be a very interesting one because Iowa has played well lately.
Yep.
Rockford, we've played them a million times. We all should know each other pretty well by now. Let's just hope that we can stay in this position and not start the playoffs against them too. Like, I'm sick of seeing that team.
24, 29 games in the last years, including playoffs. How many times did we play them in 22, 23? Is that 10 times or was that 12 times as well?
12 times.
So we played them 40 times or 41 times in the last 3 seasons, including playoffs.
I'm so sick of that team.
that is some ECHL stuff. Like, that's some old IHL stuff, man. Like, you have to remember, back in the old IHL kiddos, I guess, and Travis, the ECHL fans will get this. You forgot that there are certain teams in the IHL at the time the Griffins were playing. Like, I would forget that at one point there was a team called the San Antonio Dragons. Couldn't tell you. We never played them. Only reason I remember the Phoenix Roadrunners existed because that franchise had been around forever, and they eventually moved and became the Toronto Roadrunners for a season. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I don't remember the team before that either. Good call.
Oh, but yeah, no, like it's. Like, I knew there was Milwaukee, Chicago, Cincinnati, Orlando, because for some reason Orlando was in Grand Rapids' division. That never made sense to me.
No, it did, but it was fun.
Oh, those I still have a sweater. Like those are some great rivalries. The DeVos Bowl, as we call it. Kansas City. I'm missing one here, Cookie. There was the Indianapolis Ice, but they disbanded.
Cleveland?
Yeah, the Lumberjacks. Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw one of those, by the way, when I was in Toledo for the NCAA regionals. I saw a Cleveland, or it was a Cleveland Monsters jersey, but it looks like the Cleveland Lumberjacks. And I'm like, we gave that team to you, you sons of nutbaggers, because they were the Muskegon Lumberjacks before they moved to Cleveland. So
they were.
You're welcome, northeastern Ohio, or whatever armpit that is in Ohio. Sorry, Travis. It's that I've earned respect for Toledo, but I still hate every other part of Ohio.
It's all right. You'll learn more for it Thursday.
You will. I'm going to throw the standings on the screen here just so anyone on YouTube can see what we're talking about here. So this is the way it sits right now going into this final week of the season. Milwaukee still leading the division at 89 points with 1 game left on the season. Texas behind them at 87 points with 1 game in hand on them. They have 2 games left. Grand Rapids, 76 points, so 2 points ahead of the Chicago Wolves at 74. Both teams have 3 games remaining on the season. Rockford, 3 games left as well at 68 points on there in 5th, and Iowa and Manitoba have both officially been eliminated from the Calder Cup playoffs.
Anyone just see how bad Calgary's fallen off this year too, or in the Pacific? Like they were early on, them and the Griffins were the hottest teams in the American Hockey League. Like only Hershey was better than them, and now Calgary is barely making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we'll go through the rest of the divisions here and give you that update too. So in the Pacific, Colorado, Abbotsford, Ontario, Coachella, Calgary, and San Jose have all clinched a spot. It's 7 in that division, right, Tyler? Yes. Yeah, it's 7.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because they have 15 teams in that division. And
yeah, so those teams have all clinched. There's still 1 spot left up for grabs. You got Tucson in 7th and Bakersfield in 8th, 2 points separating them. Tucson's got 2 games left. Bakersfield's got 3. San Diego and Henderson out of the picture at this point. We'll go back up to the wildest division in the AHL at this point. The North Division, only 2 teams have clinched out of the 5 possible teams to clinch. That's Laval, who's had an incredible season. Rochester also have had an incredible season. You got Syracuse in 3rd at 82 points. They're in basically at this point. Cleveland behind them at 81 points. Toronto at 80 and Belleville at 76. So that race there continues to be interesting. All the teams have 3 games left in that division too, so that'll be fun to watch. And there still is a realistic possibility that the Cleveland Monsters do not make the playoffs. And that right there, as a Griffins fan, is a fun feeling, but also a crazy one when you look at that roster itself. Like that should be a playoff team.
They should, especially the fact that if Columbus doesn't make the playoffs, how many guys they're going to get back, right? I mean, like they would be, if they were to sneak in, I don't say sneak in because they're 4th right now, but if they were to get in at least the play-in round, they could easily sweep a team like Toronto because the Leafs hope they don't have to send anyone back down, and there's not many guys at the Leafs right now that are playing that would be key players at the Marlies too. So that could be an easy win for them. And then you play a team like Laval in the first round, who's been, I don't want to say coasting, but they haven't really had to play hard lately, just the big gap they've had. So yeah, Cleveland would be a team that if they were to get in the playoffs, I would be fearful of being a 4 seed in the division semifinals.
Then we go back up to the Atlantic Division here. Hershey obviously leading that division, clinched their spot. Charlotte, yeah, right. Yeah, no one knows the Hershey Bears, right? Charlotte in 2nd, Wilkes-Barre 3rd, Providence 4th, Lehigh Valley in 5th, and Springfield in 6th, taking up that last playoff spot there. Hartford eliminated, and Bridgeport with a probably historically terrible season down there in 8th in that division. 15 wins on the entire season. Oof.
Couldn't happen to a nicer city. Bridgeport, Connecticut.
The only thing I could say about that is we had a former Griffin go there this season, and I don't think he had a lot of fun. At least he's closer back to home, though, in Wyatt Newpower. Yep. I don't think he had a lot of fun over there.
No.
Back to the Central Division, though, like you mentioned, Tyler, with Cleveland potentially getting a few guys back. I asked Sean Shapiro when we saw him this weekend because he's more tied into the Talus organization than anything I am. I don't know anything about that organization. I was like, how many guys could they potentially get back? Like, let's say if Dallas got eliminated first round or something crazy like that. And it was only 2 guys. Like when you think of Texas, you think they have a lot of guys up with Dallas right now, and they don't. So at least there's not a ton of reinforcements coming for Texas if we do have to play them in that first round. And the potential of the 2 reinforcements we talked about in the beginning of the show with Grand Rapids, that could hopefully maybe even things out here a little bit between the teams. But let's be real, Texas, they're a fantastic team.
Yeah, they're built the right way. They have the goaltending. They have the experience, and Remy Poirier as well. I mean, I know he's never really been the top prospect that he would probably want to be, but he's a guy that can play just fine. And obviously, I mean, Magnus Hellberg, we got to know him for the brief while he was in town, and just nothing but the best to say about a guy like him with all the traveling that man has had to do over his career. And they have the scoring. I know they don't have like the Maverick Borks and the Logan Stankomas that they had in the past, but they still have a guy like Curtis McKenzie who's pretty good. And they have enough depth there. And I hate to say this because we're on a Griffins podcast, but a Milwaukee, Texas series would be a knockdown, drag it out 7-gamer. Like that would be entertaining AF to watch for sure.
It would be, honestly. I was kind of hoping that's how the first round would shake out, but Texas
it wouldn't
found
be.
their way.
It'd still be a 5-gamer, right? The division.
It would be a
final?
5-gamer. Yeah, it's 5 games until the conference finals.
Pardon me. A 5-game knockdown, drag it out, but there'll be like enough overtimes that it'll add up to 7 games. How about that?
There we go. Yeah, it honestly would. That series would feed families. Let's be real. That would be some great hockey. And you mentioned Curtis McKenzie. He is one of those ones that Texas would get back at some point. He just had another baby, so he's been away from the team. I'm sure he'll be back at some point too as well. So that is kind of scary. But you got guys like Artu Huru, Matej Blumel, Justin Briscovian that just had the Griffins number this season. So it is scary to potentially face them in the first round, but I'd rather face them in the first round than play a best of 3, if I'm being honest.
Against either Rockford or, I mean, it'd be Rockford or maybe even it'd
be Rockford.
Yeah, because it couldn't be Iowa. Well, who knows? Maybe Rockford jumps Chicago, and I can't math right now. Hold on, 8 points.
That math don't math.
That math don't math. So it'd be Rockford.
I think that's who they're gonna play. I think they're gonna get Rockford.
You think they're gonna blow it? I mean,
with how they've been going for so long, you only have a 2-point cushion. Like, you play Rockford twice, right? And then you
play Rockford twice, and then Iowa. Yeah.
And then you would play really a 3, and you just go right into a possible 2 or 3 game series against Rockford.
I just have that feeling that's what's going to happen.
I'm going to pull up here and just double check who the Chicago Wolves play this week, because that could also tell us a lot when it comes down to this.
Milwaukee, Rockford, and I forget the third team.
They play Iowa on Wednesday, Milwaukee on Friday, and they play Iowa Wednesday, Milwaukee Friday, Rockford Saturday. So you can kind of assume
who writes these schedules
for real. You can kind of assume playing Milwaukee at that point, you're probably not going to get the best version of Milwaukee. You probably see a couple of guys out for that game. I think they'll pretty much have the division locked down at that point, and I don't know if they necessarily care to win the division. They'll probably rest some guys. You still have some guys up with Nashville too. When you talk about a team that's got reinforcements coming, it is Milwaukee. Milwaukee does have some of their guys back from Nashville, but I know they even had some called up this week to Nashville. So you're going to see a team that I'm going to be really real with Griffins fans. Who knows what's going to happen with us? 2 additional players, getting a guy like Watson back from Detroit, maybe Elmer coming back too. Who knows what the team could possibly do? Milwaukee's going to be tough to get through. This could potentially be Milwaukee's year to do at least get past the conference finals if they make it that far. Honestly, that's just my honest, true opinion here. I'd love to see the Griffins do it, of course. But the realistic factor is Milwaukee probably will win the Western Conference.
Well, they may not make it through the Western Conference final if they have to play Gabriel Landeskog and the Colorado Eagles.
I think Landy won't be playing much playoff action.
In the American League, you mean?
Yeah, in the American League. He'll be playing playoffs in the NHL. What a boost that's going to be in the Colorado Avalanche room. It's going to be ridiculous.
Guy hasn't played in 3 years, scores 2 goals in a pro game. I don't care if it's the American League or not. That's impressive.
That's my pick. Colorado's going to win the cup with Gabriel Landeskog.
Well, they have an easy path, right? They play a Heiskanen-less Dallas Stars, and then they're going to go up against a Winnipeg team that, if they get through the first round, is still unproven in the playoffs, if you ask me, and Connor Hellebuck and everything. Or they would play they'd probably play at this point right now, be Minnesota and or Calgary, because who knows, maybe Winnipeg chokes again. No, I think, isn't St. Louis in the first wildcard spot right now?
Second,
I think.
Oh, they fell back? I wouldn't want to play St. Louis right now.
No.
And St. Louis did that to Winnipeg. The year St. Louis went on that great run, the first round was Winnipeg and St. Louis. And that was the first time we saw Connor Hellebuck look like crap in the playoffs.
I just want to say with Landeskog real quick, like how insane this is. Like,
that's what I was going to lead into here. I was going to say, you set me up for the perfect transition earlier, but we got off track. But for those that didn't see in the American League, Gabriel Landeskog played with the Colorado Eagles this weekend. He's back after what, it's been 3 years?
He had not played since Game 6 of the 2022 Stanley Cup Final.
So, one, that return right there, I think it was 120,000 viewers on Flow Sports watching that game, which is
it had to be a packed house, right? Like, could you imagine?
It's always a packed house there. Eagles fans are great.
Because he played 2 games. The second game is the one he scored in, but like, the fact that he played 2, let alone 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Colorado Eagles have an environment in their barn that I compare to going to a Toledo Walleye game. Their fans are insane. They're extremely passionate. They sell out the building most nights, and they have a bunch of different traditions and chants that they carry on. Like their minute of madness at the beginning of a period is just painful to listen to when you're watching on Flow Sports, but I can imagine it is so much fun to be there in the rink. And they went all out for Landeskog's return. You had Colorado Eagles jerseys with his name printed on them for sale in the team shop, and the fans showed up. You had Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and other Avalanche players at the game to watch his return. And you could see, because he did score his first goal in 3 years on Saturday night, the boys jumping all over him. Like that boost that he added to that room alone. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when he steps back foot in the Colorado Avalanche locker room? They're going to go straight to the Cup final.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of energy there. You know, I realized this when you mentioned the Eagles thing. Like, they kind of have that. You mentioned they have like a Toledo thing. Well, yes, because remember, folks, the Colorado Eagles were an ECHL team for all those years. And for people in the greater Denver area, it's like, all right, we can spend $89, $100 to go watch the Avs play, or we can go see some good hockey for like $20. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, I'm sorry. I'm going to, as at the time when Colorado was an ECHL team, and even an American League team, like the prices aren't expensive. They're not
Avalanche prices.
They're not NHL prices. Well, I mean,
you're gonna pay $100 and sit in the 300 level, and you could go pay 40 and sit lower bowl.
You can still get cheap.
Eagles.
Let's be honest. You can still get cheap tickets to go see the Panthers on like a Wednesday night game. You can still get cheap tickets to go to those games and stuff. But yeah, to your point, like that kind of environment is infectious, and I think that's what Landeskog saw too. Because we know how Avs fans, they like from the beginning when that team moved from Quebec, people wondered, like, well, they already had a team. They lost it. How can they love it? Well, it helped that they won a cup their first year in Denver.
Yeah. But
really, when have they ever been a bad fan base? Like, when have they never showed up for that team? Like, they went through some lean years, right? You know, not McKinnon's first year, but like the years that, you know, when Wall left the team right before, right? And those were some pretty bad hockey teams there in Denver. People still showed up. They still love that team. And, you know, I would say that they're more passionate. They give a crap about the Avs more than they do the Rockies or the Nuggets, even though the Nuggets are good now, but like when they're not good, no one shows up. Avs, people love the Avs no matter what. They're a big hockey town.
I hate them. But anyways.
The first thing I have to say is thanks, Tyler, for bringing back terrible memories of the Colorado Eagles.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Secondly,
you have to remember, the Kalamazoo Wings thing, like, yeah, they're the team that's closest to us in the ECHL area, but like, I don't like them because my dad, grew up a Muskegon Fury fan and Muskegon Lumberjack supporter and all that stuff. And the K-Wings gave Muskegon tons of crap over the years. So I'm not I respect Kalamazoo, but it doesn't mean I like them. And because of course the Griffins, when back in the old IHL, had plenty of battles with them. So I know your feelings, but yes.
And like the other thing with Landeskog, like the Eagles going all out, custom name jerseys, and like if they even said if your size sells out or if they sell out entirely, like you can go and put out for a customized Gabriel Landeskog jersey at like no extra charge.
They did it right, man. They They did it right. So
let's be honest, guys. We've seen it before. We can tie this back to the Griffins here. How many times we've seen, when we saw so many rehab stints, right? Like we saw Curtis Joseph, we saw Chris Chelios, we saw Chris Osgood. No offense to any of those guys. Chelios is a Hall of Famer. Osgood should be a Hall of Famer, whatever. The scale of Gabriel Landeskog, a guy that was in his prime still, and now is coming back and playing American Hockey League games. How could you not? I don't think there's been really any Avalanche player that's had that kind of, at that caliber, never had a rehab stint with their American Hockey League team.
No chance.
If any Avs fans that listen to this can correct me, please do so. Because we've had a lot of those in Detroit or in Grand Rapids, right? And with us being in West Michigan, we have the Whitecaps. We've seen a lot of Tigers come down, and that's big for us. But I don't think I've ever seen someone of that caliber at this stage of his career making this big comeback. And how could you not make the biggest deal about it? I'm bummed whenever the Wings don't send a guy down, they'll make a bigger deal about it. But I'm not part of the
you even think back to those ones, though, like Ozzy and Joseph coming down. Those games were sold out.
Yep.
When that happened.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a big deal.
When McCarty came back. That was the first time I'd ever seen a place packed on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Even in a playoff game, it's ever that packed. But
it's just good for hockey, man. Like Landeskog coming back is good for hockey. I'm happy to see him potentially go out in his own terms. Like I'm glad he could potentially come back from this injury. Like that was the biggest thing for me. And the Eagles did it right with him coming back. They capitalized and got all the attention from the hockey world on them over this weekend. No one else cared what was happening in the American Hockey League other than what was happening in Colorado that night. Yeah. So hats off to them. Good for them. Having a great season too. Probably going to be a wagon in the playoffs. Let's be real. Cale Makar got to go watch his younger brother play too for them as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's all I've got though. That's the only other crazy news and updates that have happened around the American League. So that is it for this show. But before we end it, I got to throw it over to you, Tyler. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. For one, the college insight was massive for us around the two guys, the Griffins, and technically right now the Walleye have added. So thank you for that. And just thank you for your insight in the show as always. Tell the people, though, where they can find your stuff right now, because it's a little different than last time we had you on the show.
You can find me, folks, dailyfaceoff.com. That is, I write a bunch of random... Well, these days it's a lot of college hockey signings, and of course, just finish up the college hockey tournament, and then and also we got the women's hockey tournaments going on right now, guys. Women's Worlds preliminary rounds just finishing up tomorrow, and so that means quarterfinal action starts up, and maybe another Canada-U.S. final again. I'll be all over that. You can follow me at right there. Right there. There is my Twitter handle at TJKU29. You can also follow me on Blue Sky because I do that too. I post there.
Same for us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Do that too for them. But I can't just say at TJKU29 because it's the whole freaking URL.bsky updates on there. But you just search me on there. I'm there too.
They're figuring it out over there. It's getting better.
Yeah.
At least we can upload longer than 60-second videos now, so we can actually post highlights over there for everybody.
I agree. But yes, that's where you can find me and read stuff.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Tyler, man. We always appreciate you coming on the show. Sorry that Nick could not finish out the episode too, but thanks to him for sticking around for at least half of it while his technology worked with us. Before we end the episode, as always, we got to thank our sponsors of the show, of course, DraftKings and Everything Hockey Clothing Company. Make sure when you're betting with DraftKings, you're using code THPN, and when you're shopping at everythinghockey.com, you're using code WEST. Saves you a few bucks off your order, and of course, as always, supports the show. And we can't end the episode without thanking our Patreon subscribers. And those guys are currently Tyler, Reagan, Claire Boughton, John in Florida, Lane, Griffin, Randy, Derek, Lori, Allen, and Michael. Thank you all for the love and support you guys show us over there. If you're not with us yet on Patreon, head over to patreon.com/HockeytownWest podcast. Check out the tiers we offer over there. We do unedited episodes over there, bonus episodes over there, giveaways. We even ran some separate ticket giveaways over this weekend for them. Thank you to everyone who joined the other ticket giveaways we did over this past week for the Griffins on Twitter and everywhere else that we shared them. The response was awesome. I'm glad we got to give away so many tickets to these last two games of the regular season, and stay tuned because we will have playoff tickets at some point in time as well. So keep your eye out for giveaways around those. But that is all I have for this episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a great weekend. As always, go Griffins, go Walleye, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at BrandonGR Hockey.